Check it out, we're back at Hamsterley. It's a sequel that nobody asked for, but you're getting anyway. Well, this looks a little familiar. If you follow this channel, you might have noticed that this isn't my first trip to Hamsterley Forest. There's a link up at the top of the screen now to my last video in which I rode some of the Black Trail and some of the Red Trail too. What I didn't do was ride some of the final Red Grade descents, Section 13, Special K and Brain Freeze, so that's what we're here for today, effectively to create an alternate ending. Anyway, the fun bit's about to start, so shush. Look at this, we couldn't drive all this way here and not ride these sections of trail. That's right, we're starting with Polty's Last Blast, K-Line, Transmission, Accelerator and Nitrous because this video is going to need some padding. Just look how fancy we are as well, we've got 2 cameras. Up ahead is my younger, less handsome and less charming brother, and there's a second camera attached to his helmet. You might also notice that despite these crippling handicaps, he's still pretty fast on a bike. Really, it's fortunate that we've got a second camera today because, well, you'll find out in a little while. Wow, that was fun. Now, we've got a little bit of a climb before we move from K-Line to Transmission, and we've got a little bit of a problem too. Both of us are using GoPros. I don't know if you're familiar with the Hero 7, but the button used to turn the camera on is the same button that cycles between camera modes. This means that it's easy to mash the button with a gloved hand and to end up taking a photograph instead of recording video, which is exactly what I've done. If I had a new subscriber for every time I'd made that mistake, I could have had as many as 4 new subscribers. Not to worry though, we've still got a second camera, so for a short while we're going to be using the footage from the other one. Looking around, you might notice that this part of the forest is brimming with relatively young trees. You can also see that none of those trees are dogwood trees. It turns out you can tell by the bark. I know that I've showcased these trail sections in a previous video, but that doesn't detract from the fun of riding them. They were developed and are maintained by a local volunteer group called the Hamsterley Trailblazers. They're also used for events. In April of last year, Northern Downhill organised a time trial here at Hamsterley, and the course followed this route through Transmission, Accelerator and Nitrous. A lot of people will be glad to know that Northern Downhill are returning to Hamsterley this April to host another time trial on the very same course. The final section of Transmission is a little more claustrophobic than the start. The trail is narrower and weaves between quite sizable trunks. Accelerator is a really fun section. There aren't any technical features as such, but it's possible to build speed which is bordering on dangerous given just how substantial the trees are that line the trail. The last time I was here, I almost hit one. Accelerator now runs straight into Nitrous without having to rejoin the forest road. From here on down, there are a few more features to contend with and the trail becomes a little more technical. Beyond these switchbacks, there are two rock gardens. The first is a sweeping curve of stone. It's not hard to navigate, but it robs you of speed just before you advance on the next jump. A little further down the trail, amongst the more densely packed trees, is a rock garden that could be likened to a skinny. It's not very tall, but the ground to either side of it is often wet, and it's soft enough to snatch a wheel from beneath you if you're not careful. As we break out into the daylight, the end of this section is in sight. From here, we're going to embark on another climb, this time up to Descent Bike Park, where we'll pick up our next trail, section 13. This is it, we're back on our A game and we've got both cameras working again. It's all plain sailing from here. I'm joking, let's get on with it. In an earlier Hamsterley video, I rode part of the Black Trail, including Pike's Teeth and Route 666, as well as part of the Red Trail from Polty's Last Blast through to the end of Nitrous. At the end of that video, I suggested that the final descents of the Red Trail, section 13, Special K and Brain Freeze would be a good addition to the route, so here we are, the beginning of an alternate ending. If you haven't watched that video yet, there'll be a link to it at the very end of this video. It's been quite a while since I've ridden this part of the route and I'm really looking forward to getting reacquainted. I really enjoyed riding K-Line and Transmission, but when you compare them to section 13, they feel like very different trails. They've obviously both been sculpted from the landscape with heavy machinery, but here the trail seems, to me at least, to be more intimate. It lies on the land more discreetly and feels a little less brash. Aside from that, K-Line is very much a flow trail. It's smooth, fast, and there aren't any features that compel you to slow down, whereas section 13 introduces one or two more technical features that demand a little more care. The surface is also more rugged. It's not really fair to compare them directly, but I can tell you that they're all great fun to ride. We're about to arrive at Special K, and to get to this point we followed the red way markers along the forest roads, but we could have made a detour along Bone Shaker, which is part of the Black Trail. Special K is the penultimate descent of the Red Trail and shares a lot of the same characteristics as Nitrous. It feels quite natural, which is a credit to its creators, and it doesn't feel out of place here. In fact, if anything, it complements the natural allure of the forest. This section isn't all downhill, so you'll need to get on the cranks for some parts, but on the whole, it's a relaxed and engaging part of the trail. Unlike some of the previous sections, Special K isn't overflowing with generous berms. You can ride it quickly if you like, but it really doesn't feel like you need to. Brain Freeze is the last section of single track that we'll be riding today. It's relatively short, but don't let that lead you to believe that it's not worthwhile. In some parts, the trail opens up and lets you build a little speed, but it's also happy to throw a couple of obstacles in front of you that soak that speed back up again. Like Special K, you'll need to be on the cranks here and there, but it's not enough to spoil the ride. The section ends with a short rocky descent that delivers you to a final rock drop before spitting you out back into the real world. From the end of Brain Freeze, it's only a short ride back to the warmth of the car where tea and cakes await. I wonder how many people leave their jobs on a Friday afternoon with a smile knowing that they're going to be heading to places like this over the weekend. 15 years ago, UK trail centres were in their infancy, and in that time they've come such a very long way. That's thanks, in part, to some very forward-thinking landowners, but largely to the relentless dedication of the volunteers who nurture small ideas and develop them into the trails like the ones we've ridden today. As riders, we all owe you so much. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you do, and you click the bell icon, you'll be amongst the first to know about new Meant for Descent content. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.